Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. It is the Power Rankings episode, so I got my guy, Casual Big Ten Kent, with me. He puts out his Power Rankings every Monday morning to withstand the ridicule, the anger, the F-offs, everything else that's happening in the reply section. How's it going this morning, Kent?
Not great. It's not going great in the comment section for sure. Like the replies have been bad this morning. I made the big mistake of trying too hard today on the power rankings. I stayed up like an hour later than I should have last night, put it together, and then this morning I made a couple changes and yeah, I can't get it right, man. People hate me no matter what, so it's whatever at this point. I tried though for the people.
You did try. I actually have a picture summarizing the comment sections I want to share with you. Here it is.
That's perfect.
That if you're listening on podcast, it is a picture of Cody. I forget what her last McMahon, I think it is, from the Ohio State women's basketball team, and she is flipping off the Maryland crowd. They lost in overtime to Maryland. She's flipping off the Maryland crowd, and yeah, that's a summary of Kid's comment section under his power rankings post right now. You would say that's accurate, Kid?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, literally people telling me that in the replies. Listen, here's the thing. I say this every week. My rankings don't impact what's actually happening in any of the games, and nobody's life is changing because of it. I just do my best to try to say what I think the conference looks like each week, and I'm not always right, obviously, but do my best, man, and I'm having fun doing it still. That's the key, right? We're still having fun.
That's the key. We're having fun. We're having a good time. And as always, we have John and Philip having a good time with us. John says, "Morning, gents. Hoosiers are back." Yes, talked about them a little bit last night on Big Ten After Dark. That was some fun conversation. Which right now, Hoosiers top half of the Big Ten again for both of us. I mean,
Yeah.
would we have predicted this when Mike Woodson stepped down? Probably not.
No, not at all. I actually wanted to put them even higher. They're one of the teams that I started with. I was like, how high can I get Indiana? Because I've been really impressed with what they've been doing lately. But that's as high as I could go, 9. And I feel like Indiana fans appreciate that. They understand what's kind of happening throughout the year. So I think that's good for them. I think it's the right spot. We both have it there. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, I agree. Philip also excited about his fight in the Illini. Said they destroyed Michigan. They did. They pulled away there in the last, what was it, 10, 11 minutes, however long it was. And yeah, that made you completely forget about them not scoring a single basket in the last 8.5 minutes against Michigan State because they destroyed Michigan. So um, yeah, any
Is
thoughts
Philip
there, Kit?
campaigning for Illinois to be in front of Michigan? That's what I want to know. Because I've had a lot of that this morning. Like
Probably.
people saying that this matchup or that matchup just happened, so that team should be ahead. Listen, we're 2 games away from the season being over. A lot of people have beaten a lot of people. You can't just do it on head. I feel like I'm on a broken record right now. I'm a broken record. That's what I am. I say this every week, JR. You can't just do the head-to-head matchups when you're doing power rankings. You just can't. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get where Philip is coming from, but at the same time, Philip, you got to take in the entire body of work. We're not just saying which team was the best this last week. If we were, these rankings would look completely different. And I'm not, saying that Michigan is the best team in the world. They've obviously had their struggles, but they've also won close games, and other teams haven't won close games. So it is what it is. But we'll talk about it. We'll get into it a little bit more.
But to be
Sonny
fair, though,
does.
one quick thing though. To be fair, and I know you kind of do this too, Jr. I do weight what's happened recently more than like because I have Oregon in front of Illinois, and I know we're going to talk about that, but that happened a long time ago. So like, what's happened more recently, and how Oregon's been playing is why I put Oregon in front. So we'll get into that. But hi, Sonny.
Sonny says Kit literally ruins every Monday morning with his rankings. Sonny, I hope you like my rankings then. I give them to you every Sunday night. So if your Monday morning gets ruined, hopefully that balances you out. Go check out Locked on a line. I'm over there explaining my power rankings. We get into a little bit of Illinois Purdue talk over there, probably more than we'll get into in this one, since we do have Illinois and Oregon and Illinois and Michigan to get to. That'll be fun. Couple more comments, and then we'll get into the action. Jeff says Indiana is back in the dance and back out first week.
Oh man, don't say that, Jeff. Come
Jeff
on.
coming in savage. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Kent? You think Indiana could get to the Sweet 16?
I mean, typical answer right here, but it just depends on the draw. Obviously, I'm cheering for it. I said it last week. If they get in, which it feels like they're going to be one of those last teams in right now, I am the biggest Indiana fan of all time once the tournament starts. Like, I just want to see them make a deep run with Mike Woodson. I just think it'd be so funny. I already said that, but I think it would be hilarious. I'm all in. I hope they make it to the second weekend. It would be hilarious if they made it the deepest of any Big Ten team, actually. That would be really funny, because then it goes back to, like, we thought they were going to be the best team at the beginning of the season, and they made it the furthest. Everything else in between was just a mess, though. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I am rooting very, very hard for Indiana to be a 10 or a 9 seed in the Auburn region. And Auburn is the 1 seed, and then Mike Woodson takes down Bruce Pearl, who everybody wants to take the job.
My God, that'd be hilarious.
Could you imagine? And then Indiana hires Bruce Pearl after Mike Woodson steps down.
I haven't heard that. Maybe I'm not as in touch with the Indiana coaching search as I thought I was, but I have not heard his name.
Everybody I mean, his name was early on. I think most people kind of resigned to the fact that they're not getting him. You know, they've moved on to other names, Scott Drew and stuff like that. But I definitely heard the name Bruce Pearl at one point. I don't know how loud it is right now, but I heard the name at one point. So, and Indiana fans, I am wearing my Indiana polo today that I got for Christmas from my Indiana fan in-laws. So I'm rocking it today. Rocking it. All right. Kent, let's get into some of these power rankings here. So you and I both have Michigan State number 1. I feel like we just both need to make a comment about how good Michigan State is really fast, because we can't ignore them. They're really, really good. They've done really, really well lately. How impressed are you with Michigan State?
Very, very impressed. And I think that my biggest takeaway, if I'm just going to say one sentence about them, it's how they finish games, because some of these recent games that they've had, like the Michigan game, you look at that game, you look at the Maryland game, you look at even yesterday, the Wisconsin game, it's a 2-point game with 4 minutes to go. Like, that's a close game, but they have a team that is built to take on adversity at the end of games and just finish it so strong. And that's what you want, right? Especially this time of year. So I'll give them kudos for all the wins. Obviously, they're clearly the best team in the conference right now. And I feel like I've been saying that for some time. You know, they dropped down a little bit after that West Coast trip, but obviously the best team. But for me, it's just how they finish games and are able to attack people towards the end of the second half. It's really impressive lately from them.
Yeah, I think that's been their biggest attribute right now, is just the way they're able to finish games and what they're able to do, not just defensively, but also taking teams apart offensively as well. It just adds to everything they're able to do with just shutting teams down. Really shuts down their confidence on the offensive end, and then their offense really takes away any momentum they would get from defense as well. It's an all-around effort. So Michigan State, huge props to you. You're killing it. All right. Let's get to Wisconsin, Maryland. You and I both had, well, at least I had Michigan number 2 last week. I think you had Michigan number 3. We've both moved Michigan down to number 4. Wisconsin and Maryland, we both have those flipped. So you have Maryland 2nd. I have Wisconsin 2nd. You have Maryland 3rd. I have Wisconsin 3rd. I don't think there's too much debate there. I could go either way on Wisconsin, Maryland. Honestly, if I was going to, I'd probably do like a 2A, 2B situation. Did you feel strongly about Maryland over Wisconsin? What's your thoughts?
I only feel strongly about it, but it's difficult because of where the games took place. Like, I just looked at who they played this week, and they both played Michigan State this week, right? Wasn't that Maryland-Michigan State game this week, or was that last weekend? That was
no,
like
I think it was
Monday
this week.
Right?
Yeah, Maryland was. Yeah,
okay,
it was
so
Monday or Tuesday.
I thought that Maryland, even though it was at Maryland, had a better chance to beating Michigan State than Wisconsin did. just because of the score margin and also because of the way Michigan State won. Obviously, if you lose on an 80-footer or whatever it was, 70-footer, as the buzzer's going off, that's a really tough loss for Maryland to take. And they were right in that game. And I think that if that doesn't go in and Maryland, was it, I can't even remember now if it was tied. I think it was at the time. But if Maryland ends up winning that game, we're talking about them as the best team in the conference right now because they just took down Michigan State. So they're like a shot away from being the best team. So I felt like pretty strongly that they were number 2. And then obviously Wisconsin also played Michigan State and they lost by 9 or whatever it was. So that was the only reason that I was able to flip-flop. I didn't really flip-flop them. I had Maryland number 2 last week, so I just kept them in the same spot and moved Wisconsin up to 3.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like Maryland's, Crab 5 is more of an all-around unit than Wisconsin. Wisconsin, very efficient offensively, like can shoot the lights out. But even this last game against Michigan State, they didn't shoot all that well, and it was, still a relatively close game for the most of it. Michigan State just kind of pulled away there in the end. What was that? A 9-10 point win, whatever it was. So it was a close game. I mean, who was it? Wisconsin was fouling at the end of the game, so that gives you an indication that it was close.
And they were missing. We do have to mention this. They were missing Max Klesmit for that game.
Yes.
So that's a big I do wonder what would have happened if they had his presence in that game. I think that it could have been different, maybe. But like I said, Michigan State just playing so tough at the end of games. I don't know if that would have mattered. I don't know, but it is a factor though. I do want to mention that.
Yeah. And I think that's the other piece of it is Maryland, they're probably more all around than Wisconsin is, but at the same time, Wisconsin also is a deeper team than Maryland is, right? I mean, we've talked about the Crab 5, we talked about the starting lineup. So if you want to say, well, Maryland's playing better basketball overall, okay, I can get with that. But if you want to say Wisconsin is the better team overall because they have a deeper lineup and more depth, I agree with that too. It just kind of depends on where you want to go with it. And we know where Philip stands. He says guard over Willard.
Hey, and I want to say too, just for the record, if there's any Wisconsin fans in here, I like both these teams a lot, but I am more on the Wisconsin bandwagon. Doesn't seem like it because I put them behind Maryland, but I really like Wisconsin a lot. I'm all in on these guys. I think that they're great. And like I said last week, I think they have a chance to win the Big Ten tournament. Could be as high as a 2 seed still, I think.
Yeah. I mean, again, you can pick one or the other, and I think we both agree with that. We're not going to argue too much either way. Jeff also has Maryland as 2. He says, solid pick there, Kent. So Jeff is in agreement with you.
One person today. Thank you, Jeff. I needed that. That's a big Jeff doesn't know how big of a confidence boost that was for me.
After enduring what you've gone through on in the Twitter comments.
Yeah. I really haven't been reading that many of them. I read a couple at the beginning, but yeah, it's going to be bad when I go back to them after the show.
All right, so the next section here, I think Michigan personally is probably more on the top 4 tier if we're doing that, but since, there was some discussion about it, let's talk about Illinois and where they kind of line up in the power rankings because I have them in front of Oregon. I think that's, kind of what we've seen through the history of the season, especially the Big Ten season, but I can also see why somebody, albeit you can't have Oregon above Illinois. I can see that as well. But at the same time, Illinois also just destroyed Michigan. So would there be a conversation for Illinois above Purdue and above Michigan? I don't think there's a conversation. Michigan just went 2-1 this last week. I don't think there's a conversation to drop them down below 4. Personally, I kind of was wondering if I should even drop them that low to 4 because they lost one game against one of the most dangerous teams in the conference. And yeah, they got blown out. But still, I mean, a lot of teams have been blown out this season. Illinois has been blown out this season. So for me, it's a really interesting conversation. But even though Illinois just beat Michigan, I can't. This late in the season, if it was early on in the season, I probably would. But this late in the season, full body of work, everything else that's going on, Michigan, they have been a little iffy this season with how many close games they've been in, but they've also come through and they've won those close games, and I think that deserves recognition as well. What are your thoughts, Ken?
My thoughts are that as far as Illinois versus Michigan, like obviously very impressive win from Illinois. I thought it was their most complete game yesterday against Michigan. They played really well, and one thing that I definitely want to point out was the offensive rebounding from them was incredible. When you have 2 7-footers on the floor for Michigan and you get, I think it was 20 offensive rebounds, at least 19. Can't remember what they finished with, but really impressive game. I thought the effort from Illinois was better in a road environment, albeit not a great one. Really great game from Illinois. But here's the thing: they still have twice as many conference losses as Michigan. They have 8 conference losses. So there's if you're doing the head-to-head thing, if you want to do that, then Illinois is going to be 8 at least, because or 9, because there's going to be 8 teams that are in front of them, right? Or did anybody beat them twice? I can't remember, but Michigan State beat them twice. So 7 teams in front of them. So we can't do that with every single team. But overall, still a great game from Illinois. I was really impressed. I did move them up from last week, I think a couple of spots. I can't remember where I had them last week, maybe 8 or 9. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure about.
you had them eighth. You had them
Okay, so
eighth
yeah,
because you
moved them
moved
up one
UCLA
spot.
down from fifth all the way down to eighth.
Yeah. The Purdue thing is the hardest for me right now because I still think that they're a really great team. I still think that they have 2 all Big Ten players, like first team all Big Ten players on their team. So they're obviously very good. And they've also lost a bunch of games recently. So I'm trying to say, hey, I'm going to weight things more on what's happened more recently in the conference. Well, Purdue lost what, 4 in a row? So like recently, I know they just won one, but it was really tough for me to keep Purdue where they were and compare them to like Oregon and Illinois. That was a really tough spot for me. So just kind of let it fall where it was.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of conversation in the chat about Illinois sickness and everything else, and I get that. I mean, every team is sick right now. I know every team, hits it worse than some other teams, but as far as I'm concerned, I judge what goes on the floor. I'm not gonna, not move a team down in my power rankings because they're not sick. I was actually probably chief among them that wasn't moving Illinois down because they were sick, right? Like I
Yeah, I
was the
think
one that
so.
came on here and I had Illinois in the top 4 week after week after week, and I had people
Yeah.
coming on here saying, "Why in the world do you have them top 4? They're not that good." And I'd say, well, they have guys that are sick right now. Things aren't going like this is a team that if they play to their best, they are a probably top 3 team in the conference if they play to their best. Unfortunately for them, they've just not been able to play at their best. We're seeing them do it now, and we're seeing them get better. And if they beat Purdue this last game of the year, I probably do have them top 4 after
Yeah.
that, right? Depending on what happens with Michigan. But if Michigan loses to Michigan State, Illinois takes down Purdue, I probably do have Illinois over Michigan after that. I just don't want to overreact this late in the season to one win, albeit a fantastic win for Illinois, a great win for
Yeah.
them at Michigan. I just don't want to overreact to that too much because I've overreacted to it before. What did I do? I moved Northwestern up to like 9th one time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was obviously an overreaction. But as far as I'm concerned, Illinois, they had a really good week. They just have to keep building off of that. They have to remain consistent because that's the thing with Illinois that we've not seen this season is the consistent play. They've had these stretches. The Oregon win was a great win, right? And then they got unhealthy and then things started to happen. Can you continue to be consistent now that you are healthy? If they do that, they're top 14 in the conference. It's going to happen. If they don't do that, they're probably ranging somewhere between 6 through 8 again.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the conference right now. That's kind of the way it is. If we are doing like best of the best, like your absolute best game you can put out there, Michigan State number 1, Wisconsin number 2, and then either Maryland or Illinois number 3.
Agree. I think so. I agree 100% with that because I feel like we have seen some of Michigan's best games and they're still not that impressive. Like, so I would put Illinois in front, like, comparing their best possible game. I agree with that. We're also like not that many days removed from watching Illinois get absolutely embarrassed by Duke. Like, I understand that's not a conference team and Duke's one of the best teams in the country, but that happened very recently. And the reaction from Illinois fans after that game compared to what I was seeing on Twitter last night is just almost comical. It's like, did you guys forget what you were posting like a week ago when you played Duke? I mean, it's crazy to me. So like I'm trying to keep everything in perspective, but you know, As
Listen,
fans, it's really hard to do that, I think.
I went through Ohio State losing to Michigan in football, and then 7 weeks later winning a national championship. So I get the crash out. Okay, I
Right.
wanted I wanted my head coach fired, and then less than 2 months later was declaring him as the second best head coach in college football.
So did they, by the way. They were like, I feel like I saw a lot of people calling for Underwood. Like, why is he still letting them shoot threes when they're 0 for 18 in the first half, whatever they were against Duke? Like, I don't know.
This is the thing
It's
about
always
basketball.
the ifs with Illinois. It's like, if we shoot 35% from three, and if everybody's healthy, then we are one of the best teams. It's like, okay, but you don't always do that, and you're not always healthy. What do you want me to do?
They do it in the tournament. They're gonna get the recognition. Don't you worry.
Absolutely. And they can, by the way. I believe in
They
them.
can.
I absolutely think that they can. Especially if
You,
Morez Johnson comes. Is he coming back? I saw a tweet
he
today that said like he might come back this year, which I did not think was happening.
Brad Underwood said after one of the games, I forget which one it was, or maybe it was previewing one of the games. Anyway, it was a week or two ago. He said that Morez Johnson could possibly come back in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah, that could possibly happen. He didn't say for sure. I haven't heard anybody say anything for sure that it's going to happen or not, but it could possibly happen. And if it does, obviously that's really good for Illinois, and it adds another aspect to their game that I think makes them even more dangerous. So, yeah,
for sure.
All right. Philip says Illinois has the highest NCAA tournament ceiling in the Big Ten. I think there are multiple teams in the Big Ten this year, and I don't think we can say this in years past. I think there are multiple teams in the Big Ten this year that have a Final Four caliber team. And again, when I say Final Four caliber, that's championship contender to me. If you can get to the Final Four, you can win a national championship in my mind. So don't come at me and say, well, this, that. It's just the way college basketball works in my mind. I think your teams with Final Four caliber are Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, Illinois. Purdue, maybe. I mean, Trey Kaufman, Rin, like
the other one. It's like,
well, that's the thing though. They have Final Four caliber, like Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman, Rin. Caleb First is serviceable enough to be a 5 for a Final Four caliber team if other players are good. Do what?
Fletcher gets hot.
Fletcher gets hot, exactly. He could literally win you a game in the NCAA tournament. You're not supposed to win if he gets hot. So like you have these, it all comes down to Miles Colvin, CJ Cox, Cam Heide. Like, can these guys support their big three enough to get them to that point? It can happen. I'm not going to say it will happen, but it can happen. If Michigan's hitting threes, I think they can, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not feeling confident about it lately. So I'd say you probably have 4 for sure, 1-ish in Purdue. And I think most Purdue fans would agree with that. I don't think I'm being a hater here. Final Four caliber teams in the Big Ten. And I don't think it's been that way in recent years.
No, I agree. And I don't know if that's because obviously the SEC has like the best basketball conference right now. I think that everyone can agree on that. Like they are playing. It's actually kind of weird. I watched an SEC game yesterday. It was the Florida game. And I was like, man, I don't know how many teams would compete with Florida right now. And I don't watch a ton of SEC, but they're pretty good. But anyways, the SEC is good, but we're right there behind them. But the rest of the country, I think, stinks. Like, so I think that it's a down year for college basketball. That's why I feel like there are more teams in this conference that could make a Final Four run. Maybe I'm crazy though.
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think the SEC does have the best conference. I said this on one of the other shows. I think the SEC does have the best conference, but in March, it's about your ceiling. Do you play to your ceiling? Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, the SEC has some really good teams who have really high ceilings. But if you catch an SEC team, Florida, Auburn, all these different teams, Alabama. I mean, we saw Alabama lose multiple times to Big Ten teams. This non-conference, so they're beatable. Yeah. You have to play to your potential, get those matchups. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of conversations, and that's the thing too. When I say Final Four caliber, like I'm not saying, because everybody's kind of pointing out different things with each team, Purdue, Maryland, stuff like that, and I get that. It's about, can you play to that top tier caliber? Is your top tier Final Four caliber? Your top tier is Final Four caliber? Yes. Do I think you'll get to the Final Four? No, I just named 4 Big Ten teams. Like, I'm not going to predict all of them to make
That'd
the
be
Final
sick
Four.
though.
That would be really cool,
Like a
though, if we got
guaranteed
4.
national championship. That would be nice because
That would be
it's been
really
a
cool.
while.
What was it? 2? Yeah, I don't want to do that. All right.
2004, Maryland. People
They were in the
forget.
Big Ten.
Doesn't matter. That's ours now. Where's that banner at right now? It's in a
You
Big
are
Ten
correct.
basketball arena right now.
You are correct. All right. Anything else we need to bring up with Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, anything like that? Do we need to talk about Oregon and UCLA?
No, I think we kind of covered that. It is
Okay.
weird though that because the one thing that I wanted to just bring up is like I know UCLA beat Oregon twice this year. So that one is definitely more weighted on what's happened lately. I think Oregon's really good, man. Like Nate Biddle, we talked about him a little bit like 2 weeks ago, I think it was. That guy is insane, man. Like his defense yesterday or the 2 days ago, whenever they played, it was 2 days ago. Crazy. I think he had like 5 blocks, 6 blocks in that game, and then he was just making like just so dominant down low. He's a presence that not a lot of teams can match up with, I feel like. And he's really coming into his own, I think, here late in the season. I like him a lot.
Yeah, Biddle's the X factor for them. Shelstad, Bamba, his defense, Bartholomew, his offense, like that kind of stuff matters as well. But Oregon's not going to win many games if Nate Biddle isn't playing well. I mean, it's just the way their team is built and the way they have it operate. So, all right.
Maryland was 0-2, by the way. I got that wrong. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, everybody.
Okay. Well, you are casual, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's true.
We understand.
True. Juan Dixon, though, I do remember that.
All right, let's get to the bubble madness because we have 3 teams right now that are all competing for bubble spots. I don't think it's possible for all 3 Big Ten teams to get into the bubble, and we have them all kind of back to back to back. You have Minnesota and Northwestern there in yours, but I think if we were making a tier of bubble teams, it'd be Indiana, Northwestern, or Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State. I mean, is Indiana the team that's going to make the tournament here? I mean, they've 2-0 this last week. Mike Woodson has these guys working ever since that Purdue win. People are starting to believe in Indiana again. Ohio State drops to Northwestern last week, and then UCLA. They do win against USC, but they almost dropped that one. That was not a great performance in my mind. Nebraska, they dropped one to Minnesota, who you moved up there ahead of them. I mean, it's kind of insane trying to figure this out right now. Indiana looks like the most solid bubble team in the Big Ten. What are your thoughts on kind of that 3 grouping we have there?
Like, I think Indiana's in. Like, especially if the season ended today, I think that they would for sure be in. Who did they finish with? That was the one schedule I didn't pull up.
Oregon and Ohio State.
Okay, so I think if they split those, they'll be in. And then to me, if we're going to get 10 in, I think that the last team and the most likely team right now, it's hard to say this because they just lost 3 in a row, but it's Nebraska. Like Nebraska has a chance to go to Ohio State and go get a big win. What is it, tomorrow night? And then they finish with Iowa. So that's 2 more wins on their resume. I think that they have enough of those wins, like memorable wins, like the at Creighton win was pretty big. So I think that Nebraska has the best chance to be the 10th team. But right now, I think Indiana's solidly in. Am I crazy? I must be crazy.
No, you're not crazy at all. Indiana, all they have to do is win one of those 2 games of Oregon and Ohio State, in my mind. And then Ohio State, they control their own destiny here. I talked about it with Jason. If Ohio State gets over 14 losses in the regular season, there's no chance they make the NCAA tournament. They win 3 games in the Big Ten tournament. They're not making it in if they lose 15 games. So Ohio State has to win one of these. Indiana has to win one of these. And Nebraska, who do they play? They play Ohio State, and who's the other team they play?
Nebraska's playing
Iowa.
Ohio State, and then Iowa.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if, like, say, Ohio State beats Nebraska, Indiana beats Ohio State, and then Nebraska beats Iowa, like, I think in that scenario, they're probably picking, they're probably putting in Indiana, and then they're probably picking between Ohio State and Nebraska. And if Ohio State wins that one at the end of the year, I mean, recency bias, unless something crazy happens in the Big Ten tournament, I think Ohio State's probably getting in there.
I agree. And now that you're saying that too, Ohio State has those big memorable wins as well, like those quad one wins. The Kentucky win is coming to mind. Like, so, and who was it at the beginning of the year? Texas? Is that a big win now or no?
I mean, Texas is kind of on the outside looking into the bubble, but it's
Okay.
still, I mean, an SEC win, so they're gonna
Yeah,
wait is
man.
good.
I think a lot hinges on tomorrow night then that Nebraska is in town in Columbus. Who I would say, let's just say this: whoever wins that game gets in, and whoever loses is out. Let's just say that right now. Is that fair?
That's probably true. Yeah,
Okay,
that's probably true.
let's do it.
Um, I think it's really interesting. Last week we had Northwestern fighting for their destiny in the Big Ten tournament, right? They were on the Big Ten bubble. They delivered. Now we have Ohio State fighting for their destiny with their last two games being against bubble teams. I don't know who in the Big Ten had like the futuristic sense to know how to get these last few games of the season. We're getting Michigan State, Michigan, we're getting Purdue, Illinois, we're getting Ohio State, Indiana, Ohio State, Nebraska. Like we're getting Indiana, Oregon, who they're close to each other in the power rankings right now. Like I don't know what magician created a time machine and figured this out, but bravo to the Big Ten scheduling at the end of the year.
It's pretty incredible. And then like also the Big Ten bubble like is still very alive right now. Like even I thought that after this week it'd be more clear. It's even murkier, I think, now with Rutgers, USC, and Iowa. Like who's gonna miss the Big Ten tournament, right? Like
Yeah,
I have no idea who's missing that. So like everything is still up in the air with 2 games left, and it's absolutely chaos. So it all comes down to this last week, and that's how you would want it, I think.
yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, it's Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, and then in the Big Ten bubble race, it's what probably USC and Iowa, Rutgers. I
So
have the Big
USC
Ten
has
standings.
has Washington on Wednesday. You'd like to think that they could win that game at home, but then they finish with UCLA, which is going to be tough.
Yeah,
Rutgers has Purdue, which is probably a loss, and then finish with Minnesota at home. I feel like they split that. And then Iowa, I don't have pulled up right now. We just said they played
they played Nebraska.
and who else?
Yeah, Iowa plays Nebraska and Michigan State, so they're going to lose to Michigan State.
I think it's Iowa, man. I think Iowa's out. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks now, actually. I think they're out of the Big Ten
Yeah.
tournament.
So your prediction would be USC in, Iowa, Penn State, Washington out.
That's my prediction because I think USC is going to beat Washington, and I think Iowa's going to have a really tough time winning either of their last games.
Phillips calling it now. He says MSU letdown game against Iowa.
Ugh. They do always play bad against Iowa, it seems like.
Well, if Iowa was healthy, I might get on that, but
Yeah,
I don't know. They just
I don't see it.
I mean, I saw them play against Illinois, man. And granted, Illinois played a really good game. I'm not taking anything away from them, but Iowa just looked dead. I mean, they didn't look like they had it. They didn't look like they had any juice. Maybe a little bit of rest here for them will help, but yeah, I'm not believing in Iowa here to end the season. I'm with you. I think USC gets out of this slump. They probably get at least one win here. Probably Washington to get them to 7 wins, and then Iowa. I think Iowa loses both games, Michigan State and Nebraska, and they stay at 6 wins in the Big Ten, and they don't get to that 7th win, which we said they need.
We said that like a month ago. That was a good call by us.
I think it was mostly you. Great job by you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of good calls, I do want to go through this might be a bad call, but I want to go through my 10 through 12. Can we do that real quick?
Sure.
Okay, because I already know I have a ton of comments about this, so I want to just explain this part while we got a few minutes here. When I was doing my power rankings, I was looking at Minnesota, Northwestern, and Nebraska as like a tier, and I basically just threw everything away except for what's happened in the last 5 games, right? Nebraska is 1-4 in their last 5 games, and their only win was at Northwestern. So you would think that I have to put Nebraska in front of Northwestern, especially because they won that game on the road. But here's the thing. Northwestern went on the road to Ohio State and Minnesota, and they also beat Iowa at home. So they have 3 wins in those last 5. And then Minnesota, the reason why I have them in front is because they also have 3 wins, and they were also better wins than Northwestern because they beat UCLA and USC on the road, and they beat Nebraska on the road. So there's a little bit of just in this little group of 3, there's a little bit of everyone kind of beat each other basically. And then I had to go to like what I thought was the next most important thing is like who has the best wins, and I thought that Minnesota did more recently have the better wins than those 2 teams, and that's why I have Minnesota all the way up to 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you had somebody earlier who said they would kiss you because you had Minnesota at 10. I can't find that comment. I apologize. If you're still listening and you want to make that comment again, I will bring it up. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of encouragement you need right now with people coming at you with Northwestern and Minnesota and everything else being that high. So as far as I'm concerned, this is the Minnesota team that Ben Johnson has put together. He's put together a team that can beat anybody ranked above them, but they can't beat anybody ranked below them, it seems like. So bold move by you having them 10th, because there's a lot of teams above them and also a lot of teams below them.
Well, I mean, there's teams above them that they've beaten though, right? And then there's teams below them that they've lost to. So it's all chaos and it all doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, I feel like I said, I kind of did it in like, okay, for sure, Indiana's number 9. They can't go any lower than that. And then I said, what's the next tier is like 10, 11, 12 with Minnesota, Northwestern, Nebraska. There's some arguments to be made. And that's why I just kind of went through and just broke down what's happened with them lately. And I thought that Minnesota's been more impressive lately, even though they did lose to Northwestern. I understand that. Northwestern also lost to Nebraska. I have them in front of Nebraska. So it's just really difficult right now. I have a question for you, though. Rutgers, 13. For me, that's a little too high. You just like Rutgers?
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not give a ton of thought to
the bottom
down.
part. Yeah, that's fair.
I know that probably is wrong of me. It's like, oh man, JR, what are you doing? You're doing power rankings here. But I will say, Rutgers did take down USC. I definitely think Rutgers is ahead of Iowa in my mind. And
they were winning with 3 seconds to go at Michigan.
Yeah. And that was the other piece of it too, was like Rutgers gave Michigan such a good game. You could have argued Rutgers probably should have won that game, and maybe if that happens, we do have Illinois over Michigan. But as far as I'm concerned, I can't drop a team too much because they lost by 2 points on the road to what was the second place team in the Big Ten.
I'm cool with that.
So
I kind of forgot about that game, to be honest. Maybe I should have gave Rutgers a little bit more credit.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, again, when it came to 13 or 12 down, I just didn't give a whole lot of thought to it. So
that's fair.
Sounds like you gave more thought than I did, which I appreciate.
I had Iowa in front of them, though, because Iowa did win at Rutgers recently.
Well, if you want to do that, Rutgers
recently?
Rutgers won at Northwestern a month ago.
Yeah, Iowa went to Rutgers on February 12th. That's recent enough for me to count it, and they won by 9.
Yeah. Rutgers plays their first game against Minnesota, final game of the year. Did you know that?
Appointment viewing. People are going to be locked in on that game.
They are both 7-11 right now in the Big Ten. So, Yeah.
Good
All
stuff.
Right. We went through the Big Ten bubble race. We went through everything else. Do we want to get to some comments really fast and then get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see. I'm pulling these up for the first time, so let's see what I got here. Man, that's a really long comment. I'm not gonna
hold on. John says the Ace Bailey 40-point game at Assembly Hall will live forever, despite how crap they are. He didn't score 40 though. He scored 38 because Jeremiah Williams hogged the ball there at the end. They tried to get him 40. I remember because I was at that game and I thought, oh, they're gonna give the ball to Ace Bailey here, and then Jeremiah.
Williams, had 38, right?
he walked He goes up to Ace Bailey like he's going to hand the ball off to him. And then Indiana goes to guard Ace Bailey because they know he's giving him the ball. But Jeremiah Williams just blows by him. It's the bucket and scores 2 points instead. And Ace Bailey's sitting there like, WTF, bro? Like,
dude, I got a 40-point game on the line here.
oh yeah, I cracked up so much. I was laughing so hard during that. My wife is like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, "You'd have to be a Big Ten person to get it." So, all right, what you got comments?
Okay, I got a lot actually. I cannot believe how many people are commenting on this. Tennis World is back. Feels like a little bit of a drop off or gap after Indiana. Not trying to throw shade at any teams below though. IU has and still could lose to any of them on any given day. I think that's an appropriate comment because I do think that there's a drop off after Indiana as well. I just said that I had to have Indiana at 9, and then there was a separate tier below them. And I also agree. I think that Indiana could lose to any of them still.
Yeah, I mean, like, what teams couldn't they lose to? They didn't lose to Washington. They took down Washington. They could lose to Penn State. They could lose to US. Yeah, they're right. They could lose to any of them. Probably not Washington since they just beat Washington. But yeah, I think that's right. And I would agree. 9, from 9 down, it really is just kind of. I mean, you have Ohio State and Nebraska there. At least I do because they're in the bubble race. But like, I'm not going to argue too much if you have a team over them just because of the way they've looked recently. I mean, if Ohio State and Nebraska took care of business against Northwestern and Minnesota like they should have, you'd probably be saying from 11 on down. But it's not what they've done. So
yeah.
It is what it is.
I have one from Big Ten Wilson. He said Sparty too low. Fair.
Yeah, accurate.
Illinois fan here, it looks like, because he has the Illinois logo in his picture here. Aldo, he says splitting hairs at this point, but you got to have Illinois above Oregon. Do I, though, have to? Because I didn't.
I mean, I have him above in mine. I think you should, but I'm also not going to rag you too much.
Let's see. What else did I have here? Northwestern won by double digits at Minnesota a week ago. LOL. I remember that. They also lost at home against Nebraska. LOL.
Well, and I think you could also say, like, what top tier teams has Northwestern beaten? Like, you beat Minnesota. Congrats, but Minnesota also beat at Nebraska, at UCLA, oh my gosh, I don't think we realize this. Minnesota's last 4 wins have all been on the road. Their last 4 losses have all been at home.
I didn't know that part, but I did know that their last 4 wins were on the road, which is why I wanted to give them some credit. Like, it's tough to win on the road, right? It's supposed to be. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
Supposed to be easier to win at home, though.
Right.
Blue Wolverine
okay, this one's interesting.
Hold on one second. Let's say hi to Blue Wolverine. He's here. Hey, Blue Wolverine. Good to see you. Appreciate you being here from the football episode last night as well. All right, go ahead.
Karsten said 2+ more wins for Minnesota, including the Big Ten tournament, and they should be in the next 4 out conversation. Does that even matter though to be in the next 4 out conversation? You want to be in the first 4 in conversation. Right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, you want to be in the next in. I mean, when somebody asked about it, was it Philip? Somebody asked about Minnesota to Jason in our last bracketology show, which we might have another one of those tonight. I'm talking with Jason right now. We'll see if he can do that. But we were talking about it, and like he was not dismissing Minnesota as much as I thought he would, because he was saying that it all just kind of depends everything around them. Like, if Minnesota does win these last 2 games, which is probably not going to happen, but they've also won games that probably weren't going to happen before anyway, against Wisconsin and Rutgers, like, they would be 7-7 in quad 1 games this season. That's pretty impressive. Now, the downside is they're 3-7 in quad 2 and quad 3 games. That's the downside. But if you're talking about, like, somebody that put together some good big wins, Minnesota would be up there. I agree. I don't think they're making the tournament. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you're a Minnesota fan, you would at least hang your hat on the fact of, like, well, we were kind of a bubble team. like you'd feel good about that, right?
Yeah.
And you might get in the crown.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma's in right now. They both beat Michigan by 1 possession. So I feel like the conversation needs to start for Minnesota. Let's get them
There
in
we
there.
go. There we
I do
go.
like this comment that we got from Twitter live. It says, is PSU over Purdue the biggest upset this year in the Big Ten? Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought Penn State was the best team in the conference because of it. And now I don't anymore. I still think that they're really good, man. It's so tough watching them because I'm like, what is happening? Like, this team is talented. It's so difficult to watch them.
Yeah.
Not because like it's a bad watch. It's just because why aren't they winning a lot more games? It's just really tough. I like their team still.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's probably the biggest upset in the Big Ten. I can't really think of another. USC, Illinois might be the second biggest. Am I missing anybody?
I mean, Minnesota. I just mentioned Minnesota over Michigan was pretty big.
Yeah, but you have Minnesota 10th in your power rankings.
Yeah. Washington beat Maryland.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
Washington beat Maryland.
Yeah, that is the biggest.
Now, if Purdue hadn't lost 4 of their last 5, Penn State, Purdue probably would be the biggest. But with the way Maryland's playing right now and everything, yeah. How did we forget that?
I don't know, because I remember after that game, I was like, I'm all the way out on Maryland. It's going to take a long time to get me back on your side. And a long time has passed, and I am back on their side.
There it is.
So nothing I said was false. Like, I just said it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of effort. But they did it, though. They got me back.
They didn't even have to tweet at you or anything, you know?
No,
like
they didn't. Just... No. Which some teams do. They have to, like, mention me or quote tweet me or something. Like, Wisconsin did that. That's why I love Wisconsin so much.
There you go. Well, but you still have them below Maryland.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. We need to start factoring those into the power rankings so that way schools know
like which teams are actually showing us love.
Yeah, if you're showing us love, we will rank you higher in our power rankings. That obviously means so much. Philip says Minnesota first crown winner. I like it. I
don't get that.
Well, the crown. Remember the tournament. If Minnesota doesn't make it, they'll probably go to the crown. That's like the new NIT tournament, and so Minnesota be the first crown winner, that tournament thing.
Anyway.
Gotcha. Drew Allerseason, another comment from Twitter. We appreciate you being here, Drew Allerseason. He says, should Steve Peichel be fired? And somebody else was asking about that earlier. Oh, yeah. Mish was asking the same thing. Should Steve Peichel be fired for doing so bad with an absurd roster? What do you think?
Sure.
I mean, we talked about it in our preview. We were like, Steve Peichel could find himself in a bad situation here.
Yeah.
You know, he got himself such a good roster. If you don't deliver with it, like if you don't go to the Big Ten tournament, looks like they are. It looks like they should be fine. But if you don't go to the Big Ten tournament with 2 lottery picks on your roster, like, I get it. You didn't have, the best players around him in the world, but still, like, you got 2 lottery picks on your team.
They're not the worst players, though. They don't have the worst, like, cast around those 2 guys. And same thing, like Illinois fans were saying about injuries and stuff like that. I know Dylan Harper missed a lot of time, but this is a team that I think at the beginning of the year, I said if they don't make the tournament that he should be fired. So I'm just going to stick with that because they're not going to make the tournament, right? And
yeah,
I'll just say that unless they win the Big Ten tournament somehow, which would be incredible.
If they make the Big Ten tournament.
Right, exactly. Which I think they will make it. Still think it's high. Anyways, so if they don't make the tournament, which it's looking very likely that they won't, I thought that he should be let go, and they're not going to make it. So yeah, I'll just stick with what I said at the beginning of the year. Let him go. He's not going to have a better team than this. No, so what's your hope if you're Rutgers, right?
Steve Peichel is like Mick Cronin, right? Like you give Mick Cronin, Dylan Harper, and Ace Bailey. Like if he had any hair, he'd pull it out. Like
that's such a great line, dude.
Thanks. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper on Mick Cronin's team. Steve Peichel has adjusted this season in some ways, but for the most part, like Steve Peichel is bringing in, a defensive-minded, he brings a defensive-minded scheme. He brings toughness. He brings all that stuff. Like, it's not to say that Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper can't be tough, but that's not what those two dudes are hanging their hat on. They're not hanging their game on, oh, we're tough. They're hanging their game on, like, Ace Bailey, I can do a 360 in the air fadeaway jumper, and you can't stop it. Like, that's not what Steve Peichel is doing. So I think if you're Rutgers, you have to keep Steve Peichel around. Give him players that are actually going to fit his system, which is crazy. Like 2 lottery picks should fit your system, but at the end of the day, like it's like I I don't know. I don't think you can fire him after this season just because things didn't go well. But at the same time, if they did fire him, I wouldn't argue too much about it.
What if they could hire Bruce Pearl though? Then would you fire him?
I would, yeah. If you could hire Bruce Pearl
through that door. I got to defend Mick a little bit, man. We heard that he wasn't going to be able to control Sky Clark, and I haven't heard a peep out of that locker room this year.
Dude, Sky Clark's been really good offensively for him.
So maybe he could handle Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, and Sky Clark. Imagine that.
Yeah. Berserker says, who is Rutgers going to get that's better than Peichel? Rutgers is the worst college basketball program in the country before him. I mean, I think in the Big Ten, like you're in the Big Ten now, you have the money. I think you should be able to hire, just about anybody from, say, the Big 12 or the ACC. Obviously not the big programs. You're not hiring John Shireman away, like that. But, like, would Porter Moser go to Rutgers?
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Like, he should. Probably better money there than well, I guess Oklahoma's in the SEC now, so never mind. That doesn't make sense. But who's another? Why am I blanking on? What's the Cincinnati coach's or the Xavier coach's name? He's in the Big East. I can't know conferences. Never mind.
You talking about
the Miller guy?
God, you talking about Sweaty Boy?
Yeah, Miller.
He's still at Xavier, right?
Yeah, he's still at Xavier. What's his name?
I can't think of it. I'm looking it up.
It's Archie Miller's brother. But like I think you would, yeah, Sean Miller.
There it is.
Thank you, John. Like you should be able to hire somebody like that away, right? Like for the money Rutgers has, New Jersey's not like a completely talent deficient place, and Sean Miller's been in the Big East. Like he knows how to recruit that area. He's been in Ohio, so as far as I'm concerned, like if you're in the Big Ten, you should be able to hire those coaches away, even if your basketball program's not been good in the past.
Sean Miller seems like the most Rutgers guy ever. Like he seems like he'd be a good fit.
Yeah, he did have his troubled past at Arizona, but be a really interesting fit. So, all right. Anything else you want to get to, Kent, before you get out of here?
There was something, but that whole conversation about Rutgers head coach just threw me completely through a loop. So I can't remember what it was. Fun show though, man. Thanks for having me on again.
I think here soon we should do a power ranking show on most likely to be fired, not fired.
Yeah, I think we did do that one time. Like we did like hot seat.
Yeah,
a hot seat show.
Hot seat power rankings. We should do that. Yeah, we'll talk about it off air. All right, everybody. I'm gonna try to do a bracketology episode with Jason tonight if he can. I am asking him a little late, so we'll see. I want to let you guys know all of the Big Ten basketball content. If you guys want the basketball content, it is all over on the basketball channel now. I'm gonna continue to do the power rankings show on both channels, but Big Ten After Dark, everything basketball related is now over on the basketball channel. The link is in the description if you want to go over there, subscribe to that one. I know some people said they don't want to subscribe to both channels. I get it, but I also have people who refuse to subscribe to the football channel because there's basketball content on it. So I'm just trying to do the best I can. So please go over to the basketball channel, subscribe over there. There will be Big Ten After Dark, the power ranking show. You'll get videos. Like I'm going to try and make a video here soon on Indiana and how we've seen a resurgence from them ever since Mike Woodson said he was going to step down. All that stuff. So go over to the basketball channel, the Big Ten Huddle -basketball, or the link is in the description, and you can find all the stuff over there. The only thing that's going to be simulcast on both right now is the Power Rankings episode. Kent, you have anything Twitter-wise going on?
Yeah, why
Big
would
Ten
people not want to subscribe to 2 channels? It's free.
I don't know.
It doesn't cost you anything. Just click another button. It's fine. You'll get the notifications for both.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
I don't know. I just got a comment one time from a person that I've legitimately never seen a comment from before, and they were like, I'm not subscribing to 2 channels. It's like, Okay.
As far as my Twitter stuff, I don't have a lot going. Oh, we got to mention this because you talked about it with me a lot. I know you got to get out of here, but my daughter won her basketball championship, fifth grade. She's in fourth grade. She lost in the championship in second and third grade and got second place, but she finally got her first place trophy. Huge weekend here at the Casual Big Ten House. So shout out to my daughter. And then I got the Big Ten tournament coming up. I'm really excited about that. Obviously, it's in like 10 days now, right? Or something like that. So I
Yep.
cannot wait to be in Indianapolis. Shout out to Be Easy, who just jumped in the Twitter chat, and he'll be with me. He will be with me. That is one of
There we
my
go.
friends. One of the
There
two
we go.
people that will be with me. Secured our tickets. We are in the lower bowl, row 20. I can't wait.
Will the lovely green hat be with you as well?
I might take this hat. It's a Smokey the Bear hat. I kind of like this hat.
There you go. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Every time you go to a Michigan State game, you should wear that. There you
Be Easy has never. He is a Michigan State fan, and I think he's gone to like 4 straight Michigan State games, and they've lost every single one of them,
go.
including the one at Iowa where they came back with like a minute 30 left.
Oh,
He was at
no.
that game.
Oh my
Shout out
gosh.
to Brad. What's up, Brad?
Shout out the curse of your own team. I love it. Speaking of the Big Ten tournament, I do got to go, but I'll say this really fast. Probably going to do something similar. I'll let you guys know next Power Rankings episode for sure, but probably going to do something similar to what we did last year, where I am going to go live after every single night. We'll do a Big Ten After Dark every single night after the Big Ten tournament, talk about the games that just happened, then talk about the matchups that are coming in the next day. And then, yeah, that'll be the way we do it. So if you guys like that kind of content, go subscribe to the Big Ten Huddle dash basketball and get all your basketball content over there. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Thank you, Kent, for coming in, give us your power rankings, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.